Hello, everybody. We'll get started in just a couple minutes here. All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We are going to be recording this, so just a heads up about that. The recording will be available after the fact, as well as the slide deck. We're going to send that out to you probably tomorrow. So don't worry about catching everything. You'll definitely have access to all this information later as well. But tonight, we're going to be talking a lot about concurrent enrollment, which is how high school students, K-12 students, register for DVC classes. So my name is Sarah Peterson. I am DVC's Manager of Early College Credit, which includes concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, all of those ways that we have high school students taking college classes. And I'm joined tonight by Sarah Proctor. Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Sarah Proctor. I am one of the program coordinators in our Welcome and Connect services. I'm going to be managing the Q&A in tonight's webinar. So if you do have questions, you can post those questions in the Q&A, and I will do my best to keep up with the questions, answering those questions. Just know that tomorrow I will be sending out the slide deck that Sarah is going over tonight in an email to all of our participants.
Awesome, thank you. And I did also want to note, so this presentation is going to focus primarily on our spring 2026 concurrent enrollment. So that's our January to May. A lot of the information is applicable to any term that you want to take. So if you are interested in taking a summer class, a lot of this will still apply. But we will be doing another webinar in April for summer and fall enrollment as well. So if you're interested in that, feel free to stick on, or you can come back and see us in April. So just to get started, oh, and another thing I wanted to mention, a lot of these slides are very text heavy, and that is by design. So that when you get the slides later on, you have all the information available. Later on, I'll cover some registration tips and tricks. And so those are definitely slides that as you're going through our registration process, we want you to have access to that just in case you run into problems or you need to access some of the links. So just a heads up, it will be a pretty text heavy slide deck. But hopefully that means that you'll be able to access the information later on. All right, so, oh, did I just raise my hand? There we go. So what is concurrent enrollment? So as I mentioned, concurrent enrollment is an opportunity for high school or K-12 students to enroll in college courses. It's a great way for students to jumpstart their college journey, stand out on college applications, and accelerate their learning. We'll talk a little bit more about different kinds of classes you can take through concurrent enrollment and different kinds of paths that you might want to go down. I did want to mention right at the top that we do consider concurrent enrollment students as college students, which means that all of the rules about student records for college students that we find in FERPA apply to concurrent enrollment students. So basically what this means is that DVC, our admissions and records office, my office, any of the people that you work with at DVC will only communicate directly with the student. We do not work with parents for this unless we have the written consent of the student. So a little bit different from high school. Even though the student might be a minor, we do consider them a college student under FERPA. So we will only be working directly with the student. And again, the student is responsible for their registration, communication with faculty and staff, and management of their academic records. So it's a little bit of a change, but we definitely want them to take on that college student identity as they're coming to DVC. Also, just wanted to mention some of our frequently asked questions at the top. So courses taken through concurrent enrollment will be listed on their official college transcript. So if a student takes classes through concurrent enrollment, they will receive or have a DVC transcript, and they should be included on college applications. But how they are listed on the high school transcript varies by district and by school. So if you're interested in learning more about how DVC courses will apply to the high school transcript, if they'll count for graduation requirements, if they'll count for A through G, things like that, I definitely want you to go to your high school counselor. They are the experts in those areas. I would always recommend starting with the high school counselor as the first point of contact for participating in concurrent enrollment. They will have to approve all classes that you take at DVC, and they can also advise on these additional points. DVC counselors typically do not meet with concurrent enrollment students, although they may be able to see on a drop-in basis. But again, the high school counselor should be your first point of contact when you're interested in concurrent enrollment. If you have questions about the registration process, the registration is handled by our admissions and records office. I'll have the emails for everybody at the end, but just if you're in the middle of the registration process and you're not sure what to do, I recommend going straight to the admissions and records office for support. I also want to mention we do have a Q&A, so if you have questions as we're going through the presentation, please feel free to put your questions in there. Sarah will respond to them or we'll respond to them at the end live. All right, and while we are getting started on this, I did want to do a quick overview of the DVC website. Just to show you, we have a brand new website. This is new as of last year. So I wanted to show you how you can navigate it a little bit to access information about concurrent enrollment and our other programs for high school students. So this is our homepage. This is where you'll go for most things, including Insight, which is our student portal. So anything related to registration, transcripts, that's all going to be through Insight. If you're taking an online class, that's going to be through Canvas. That's our online learning portal. So both great links to have right at the top. We have some application links, registration links. But something I wanted to highlight is underneath our academics here, you can see high school programs. And this is where you can find a lot of information, a lot of links to the forms that we're going to talk about are all going to be in here. So here's our concurrent enrollment right here. We also have a page for our career academies, which are our summer camp style courses. We're not going to cover career academies too much tonight. That's going to be more in the April webinar. But if you have questions about that, feel free to send us an email. We also have Educational Talent Search, Upward Bound, our Diamante Scholars Program, which is a dual enrollment program with Mount Diablo Unified School District. Our high school articulation page, if you're in a class that is receiving DVC credit from your high school, and also dual enrollment, which we'll cover briefly tonight as well. On this concurrent enrollment page, you can find the link to all your registration forms, so special admissions form, how to check your application, prerequisites, and registration. We're going to cover a lot of this tonight, so this is a good reference if you're checking it out later. Again, mentioning about FERPA, like I just said, fees, disability support services, all of which we're going to cover tonight, but just wanted to highlight that if you're interested in learning more. All right. I'll also refer back to the DVC website a couple of times through the presentation, show you a little bit more of Insight, our student portal again, as we go through, just so you can see what it would look like as you're going through the steps in the process. All right, so one of the big questions, the biggest question I get asked, what is the difference between concurrent and dual enrollment? So before we get into the text on this slide, dual enrollment is an amazing program, but that term is used a little bit differently at different colleges. So I just want to clarify our terms as we're getting into this. Some community colleges and some state level communications use the term dual enrollment to cover all high school enrollment. At DVC, we do it a little bit differently. So for us, dual enrollment is specifically a contract that we have with the high school district. So they are restricted by high school district, while concurrent enrollment is open to all students. So for us, concurrent enrollment is another way to say is independent high school enrollment is when a high school student enrolls alongside DVC students in a DVC class. So one that we're already offering either on our campus, online, we'll talk a little bit about modality later, but alongside DVC students in our classes, whereas dual enrollment is typically a program that is restricted to students from a particular high school. We may be offering classes on a high school campus or reserving seats in a high school class, which is why they reserve them or they're restricted by district. Let's see. So again, I would recommend checking in with your high school counselor if you're interested in dual enrollment specifically, just to see what options are available. We do have CCAP dual enrollment agreements with Martinez USD, Mount Diablo USD, San Ramon Valley USD, and with Clayton Valley Charter High School. So all of those districts have access to some dual enrollment programs, but students from any district are able to take concurrent enrollment, which is mostly what we're going to talk about tonight. All right, so some quick frequently asked questions. What classes can I take? This is my second most asked question right after what's the difference between concurrent and dual enrollment? And again, I'm going to direct you to your high school counselor. They are going to be the experts at advising you on what to take. Again, especially if you're interested in graduation requirements, A through G, any of those things. A lot of the high school counselors in our region are very familiar with our processes since we work pretty closely with them. So definitely recommend starting there. I'll also provide some resources later on to our catalog and other things like that that can help you if you're looking to find a specific course. Where are classes held? So we have classes at both our Pleasant Hill and San Ramon campus. So DVC is one college with two campuses. Both have amazing opportunities and robust options for general education and other career education programs. And they both offer multiple modalities. So we have fully in-person classes, fully online classes that meet on Zoom. That's our online synchronous option. Fully online asynchronous is basically no meeting times, not necessarily self-paced, but fully online asynchronous where there's not a specific time you have to be online. And hybrid, which is where we have some in-person meetings and some online options. So for example, our math department typically runs hybrid options where students have to come to campus at least for the exams, or they'll offer fully in-person classes. The rest of our departments have a bit of a mix of modalities. It really just depends on what class you're looking at. And we'll also cover how to check the schedule and how to read through our different scheduling options later on in the presentation. All right, how much does it cost? So the great news is that tuition is waived for resident K-12 students participating in concurrent enrollment. However, concurrent enrollment students may be charged a small fee, usually like about $10, and they are responsible for purchasing or renting any textbooks or other instructional materials that are required for your classes. Definitely want to mention, if you are interested in concurrent enrollment, you register for your class, always check your payment tile on Insight, even if you don't think you're going to owe any fees. Highly recommend checking that right after you complete your registration, because if you see higher fees, you may need to clear your residency with our admissions and records office. This is very common. You can be coded as a non-resident for a variety of reasons, coming from your application to the college. So always want to highlight that. We don't want you to get stuck paying higher fees than you expect if you can clear them. So just a plug on that, and I'll show you the payment tile in just a little bit when we go through our Insight. All right, what if I have a 504 or IEP? So as I mentioned on our concurrent enrollment page, we list some information about our Disability Support Services office. Our DSS office does work with high school students as well as college students or DVC students. However, it is a little bit of a different process than you might be used to in high school. So for example, similarly with our registration process, typically parents are not included in the disability support service setup process. and students are expected to self-advocate. So whereas in high school, you may have someone, offers particular services if you're in your class. At DVC, if you need an accommodation, you have to ask for it. So it's just slightly different. Again, getting into that college mode, what it might be like to be a college student after you graduate high school. So it's good to kind of flex those muscles. But just, I highly recommend starting early and again, making sure that the student is the one that's advocating for those resources. You may provide your current IEP or 504 plan when you're applying for services, but they don't directly transfer. And there are certain accommodations that high schools can provide that colleges can't. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. Again, I recommend starting this early if this applies to you, just so you can see what is available to you. And that way you can make a more informed decision on if you think this is a good fit for you or not. All right, how many classes can I take? Concurrent enrollment students can take up to 11 units per semester. For reference, I would say a typical DVC class is between 3 and 5 units. Like our Intro to Psychology course that I've listed here is 3 units, whereas a calculus class, a little bit more high units, is 5 units. Our career academies over the summer are 1 to 2, so we have a wide range, but as long as you're staying underneath or below 12, about 11 units, that is where we have our concurrent enrollment students. What if I'm homeschooled? If you are homeschooled, we're absolutely welcome to enroll through concurrent enrollment. You'll go through the same process as other students. On the special admissions form, there is an option for homeschool. If you choose that, it's going to pop down an upload link for you to put in your private school affidavit. So aside from that, it is very similar to the rest of the students, so I won't go too much into details, but I did include a link here to our concurrent enrollment page where we have some additional frequently asked questions that may help you as well. All right, so how to register. So this is where I'm going to go a little bit more into insight. But in general, it's a 4-step process. You would apply to DVC. You will complete your special admissions form, which gets signed by the parent and the high school counselor. If you're homeschooled, it will just get signed by the parent. So just keep that in mind. You'll need to clear any prerequisites. So depending on the course that you're taking, if it's a math class, if it's a language class, a higher level class, you may need to clear some prerequisites, and we'll cover a little bit more about that later in the presentation as well. And then you actually register. So there are those 3 important steps of applying, doing the form, and registering that are going to happen for any class that you take at DVC. And then the prerequisites are just for classes that require a prerequisite. All of these are links. So when you get the slide deck again, you'll be able to access all of these things, but I'll just go through them quickly. After I address the registration dates on the right, so for spring 2026, again, the primary focus of this presentation, registration will actually begin Thursday, January 8th. So for that semester, if you're interested in taking a spring class, I recommend getting your paperwork in, all your forms and everything processed before you leave for winter break. Just in case there's any issues and you need to redo a form, it makes that week you get back to school a little bit smoother. So recommend getting all of that done in December if you can. And then for summer 2026, our registration is usually in mid to late May, usually the week before Memorial Day. We don't have the exact date yet, but we will definitely cover that in our April webinar as well. And for that, I again recommend starting probably in March and April. You should have enough time to get through the whole process, but again, I definitely wouldn't wait till the last minute, just so you can be sure that everything is processed in time. So I'm going to start working through these links just so you can kind of see what the process looks like. So our first step is to apply to DVC. This will link you directly to our CCC Apply website. This is the California Community College application website. If you've ever applied to a community college in California, they all go through the same page. So you may already have an account in here. If not, you're going to create an account and then complete an application for the term that you're trying to register for. So it would probably at this point be spring 2026. You can also find this on our website through this Apply Now button at the top. And scrolling down to our US Student and Dreamers link will take you right to that same page. All right, I'll cover some tips and tricks for applications on a future slide, but just to note, it usually takes up to 24 hours for an application to process. If you don't see an application, or if you don't see an email back from us within about 48 hours of completing your DVC application, I do recommend that you reach out to ask for assistance. just in case your application did not download correctly. We'll cover that on a future slide, but just wanted to highlight it here as well. All right, complete your form. So the special admissions form is what is required every semester for concurrent enrollment students in order to take their classes. As I mentioned, it's linked on our concurrent enrollment page. Here it is. And this link may change. We're working on updating our form a little bit, so it might look slightly different when you're going in to actually complete this, but it will be mostly the same. So I'll just walk you through what it looks like when you're completing the special admissions form. First of all, we do need a parent name, a parent or guardian, and a principal or counselor. So I will go ahead and fill these in. And again, as I mentioned, for our homeschool students, it's okay for these to be the same, but typically for a traditional high school student, you would want to have a parent or guardian, and then again, a high school counselor is typically the one that's going to sign these forms. Here is our terms and conditions. A lot of this we're covering tonight, but I recommend reading through it as well. Something to note about PE courses, we won't be able to register in those until the first day of class. So some of that kind of information is listed on this page. Next, we can choose our term. So right now, the next option would be spring. Like I mentioned, our summer process, I would probably start in March or April. That's typically when the form is available for summer. So you won't be able to do that yet. You would still be able to apply, just not go through the form process yet. We have a list of high schools. If you don't see your high school on this list, go ahead and choose My High School Isn't Listed. And then we'll have you input your section number and your course name. So that's leading in a little bit to how to find courses. So I'll cover that in just a minute. But in general, that's most of what we need. Parent name, grade level, just what grade you're going to be. If you're going to be registering over the summer, I would just do the grade you're going to be the next year. For spring, obviously do your current grade, and then we'll have you sign at the bottom here. Once the student completes this form, it will get routed to the parent or guardian for their signature. They would need to make an account in this website, in our Dynamic Forms website, to sign their portion of the form. If you have trouble with that or you're running into issues, absolutely check in with our admissions and records office or our Welcome and Connect team, and they can assist you with that process. Once the parent and guardian signs it, it's going to be directed to the high school counselor that you put on the form for their signature, and then it will go to admissions and records to process. It can take a little while for this to process, which is why I always recommend starting early, trying to get things done before winter break, etc. Especially as we need multiple signatures, that can delay the process. So once you complete the student portion, there are several steps that need to happen after that. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. All right, we'll go through the prerequisite form. So this should link you to our prerequisite page on our website. Again, similar process, log in through your DVC login. It will have you complete this form, and then you can list the courses that you want to take down here. Just to note, if you are going to be completing this with an AP score, we'll talk about how AP scores can be applied at the end. But if you are going to be clearing for something that requires an AP class or AP score, please attach the AP score report from College Board. So we will not use a high school transcript for an AP course. We won't be able to use your grade in the AP class. We would need the score on your AP test. So if you have questions about that, we can cover that, and I'll talk a little bit more about how APs apply, but just something to note since we see that as an issue. If you're using a high school class to clear a prerequisite, we will need to see both semester grades in order to clear you. So for example, if you're trying to take Sign Language 3 and you've taken Sign Language 2 at your high school, we will need to see both the fall and spring semester grades for that Sign Language 2 in order to clear you for Sign Language 3. All right. And last but not least, how to register on Insight. I have included a couple of links here to our how-to guides that our Welcome and Connect Services office has created. They're super useful if you're take you step by step through the process. I've included two different ones here. So how do I register through Insight is our typical registration process, and then how to register through the Ed Plan is a nice backup option if you run into issues with our typical process. So again, all of that is linked in these slides, so no worries about getting those links right now. But I did want to take this time to highlight our Insight portal. So this again is our student portal for DVC. This is once you go through your DVC application and you get your login information, this is that email that you'll receive within 48 hours is your login information to Insight. So this is where most things happen for DVC students. Just wanted to highlight a couple of things here. If you go to this DVC student forms tile, you'll see that special admissions form and that prerequisite form. So if you can't find them on our website, those are great options. Also, our California residency reclassification. Again, if you see fees on your account, this is probably where they're going to direct you. Let's go back home. Speaking of payment, that is where this tile is, so you can see how much you owe. Like I mentioned, typically concurrent enrollment students owe, between $5 to $10 plus textbook cost is separate. If you see higher fees than that, a couple hundred, a couple $1,000s, definitely reach out to our admissions and records office just so you can make sure that you get that cleared if possible. We'll also show you how to search for classes in just a second, and I really want to highlight our email. Especially for high school students. Obviously, you have access to a high school email, but as a DVC student, you will also get a DVC email, your Insight email. This is primarily where you will be communicating with your teachers, with your faculty members at DVC, with staff. If you have a question, like a registration issue that you're running into, I highly recommend having the student email from their Insight email to our offices. That is going to be the quickest way to get any information because, again, we have to make sure that we're communicating directly with the student. So definitely wanted to highlight that. All right, and also grades and transcripts. At the end of the semester, if you need to order an official transcript to send to your high school or to put on college applications, that will be through here. And you can also view an unofficial transcript that shows your grade in the class if you're curious about that. And our online student learning portal, Canvas, is right here as well. All right, let's take a look at the schedule. So search for classes. There's a couple different ways to do this. I'm just going to browse our full course schedule. Again, we have 2 campuses. I typically like to search at both locations in case there's online classes. You have different options for terms, so we do already have our summer schedule available to view if you're interested in looking at our summer schedule, but for now we'll look at spring. You can choose a lot of different options if you have a particular type of class that you're looking for, especially for high school students. If you're interested in an evening class or potentially an online class, those would be good to choose here. Just want to highlight, we have, for example, all of our departments listed, all of our instructors listed, and all of our courses listed. For example, if I'm interested in taking a sign language class, as I mentioned earlier, I would just scroll down, find that major or that department here. And now I can see all of the sign language classes that DVC offers. So this is great when you're going to do your special admissions form. Here is that section number that you're going to need for the form, and the course name is right here. So you can just copy and paste those into your special admissions form. And then last, I will show you the registration page right here. There's a couple different options here. As I mentioned, the educational plan is an alternate, but I will show you our typical registration process through our visual schedule builder. So again, you're going to choose your term. Summer is not open yet, but you'd be able to view the classes in here as well. Spring, I'm going to show you what this would look like. So again, if I'm looking for sign 282, I can do that through here, and then I can see the different options. From here, you can pin the class if you know this is the section that you want to take. And then if you do want to register after our registration date opens, you just click continue here and then submit changes. So again, there's guides for all of these steps, so you don't necessarily need to have it all ready to go right now, but just wanted to show you a little bit of what it looks like in case you're interested in going through this process. All right, so here are our tips and tricks. Again, this is a part of the presentation that it's really good to have on hand as you're going through the process. So hopefully when you get those slides, you can save them. But I'll go through these relatively quickly. So first tip, have backups. So on our special admissions form, you'll notice that we have 4 different course options. Given that concurrent enrollment students are registering alongside DVC college students, you might not have as many options as you want on their registration day. So I always recommend having backup options. If you have a few different courses that you're interested in, feel free to put them on your special admissions form. You don't have to register for everything that's on your form. It's just giving you additional options on that registration day. In addition, you only need to list a course once. So if you want to take, for example, Psych C1000, our Introduction to Psychology course, we have 20 sections or something like that. You only have to list it once on your special admissions form, and you'll be cleared for any section of Psych C1000. So don't worry about putting all the sections that you're interested in. As long as you have one on there, you should be cleared to take any of them. Again, complete your forms ahead of time. This is especially important for summer and fall because that big summer break, but I definitely still recommend it for spring registration. Try and get it in before winter break so that you're not trying to scramble when you first come back to school. Take screenshots. So on registration day, if you're running into problems or if you're going through our form process and you're running into errors, highly recommend taking a screenshot of the error. It really helps us figure out the problem quickly, especially if you're getting a red error message, just to see what the exact error message is. Especially if you're sending it to admissions@dvc.edu. Again, from your Insight email, always recommend sending it directly from Insight to our DVC offices. Also, just want to note that most concurrent enrollment students will be able to register at 7 a.m. on the registration day, but our admissions and records office does not open until 9 a.m. So I know that early morning scramble to get through to classes on that day can be very stressful. So just wanted to give you that information that if you run into an error, you may have to wait until 9 a.m. to get through to a representative. Okay, so again, some common registration errors. These are really what we'd be looking for in those red tags. So if you get a registration error, this is that screenshot I would want you to send, is what that error is to our admissions office. But just so you have a little bit more information about what can happen. If you see an error that says you don't have permission to enroll in the course, that means that something's up with your special admissions form. So check that it has been fully signed and processed. Again, it can take a little while to get all of those signatures in, and then they do have to be processed by admissions manually. So that can take time. Forms can take up to 24 hours to proceed, or to business hours to process once they've gotten all the signatures. So you may just need to wait for your form to be processed, but you can check in with our admissions and records office on the status of your form. The next one is the required prerequisite has not started. So again, this is going back to that prerequisite form. Make sure that you have that submitted ahead of time for any courses that require that, and especially ahead of time because they can take up to 5 business days during registration times. If you see another funky error like an error 500, error 400, something that just doesn't quite look right, that's where I would recommend using that backup system, that educational plan. So I've included that link here as well. We have a couple different ways that you can register, so recommend trying a different option if you're getting a weird block. And you may see an error, or you may see in our course descriptions some additional notes about particular programs like our PACE program, our Umoja program, our Puente program. If you see that in the course notes or you see this error when you're registering, you might not be able to register in that section. So most of we have several programs on campus, like our dual enrollment programs, that reserve seats in classes. And for those classes, they're not able to take additional students. So just keep that in mind as you're looking through our schedule and you're registering. You might not be able to take every section that's listed in our schedule. Oh, and the picture did not work. So here are resources. Again, I'll click through some of these links to show you. We do create a high school friendly courses list every semester. This is not an exhaustive list by any means. This is really just an entry point for picking classes. So again, when you're going into that appointment with your high school counselor, this can help you navigate that conversation a little bit if you have a particular thing that you're interested in. It also includes a lot of information about concurrent enrollment on the front page, our registration steps, and a link to our page here. But on this second page is where you'll see our high school friendly courses. These are going to be intro level options that are available either after school or online. So again, for our traditional high school students, what might fit into a high school schedule. They are typically going to be general education courses that can transfer to a CSU and UC. We do have a couple that are more specialized, like our programming. And then they've also bolded classes that are super popular, so our most popular concurrent enrollment classes that we see students taking. But this is, again, just the surface. If you're interested in taking a higher level course, they're not necessarily going to be listed here. That does not mean that you're not able to take them. This is just kind of our most broad options for students who are just getting started. And again, we create these every semester based on the classes that are scheduled as available. We will be updating this version in January once we have a little bit more of our registration process. So before that January 8th date, we should have a new list as well. I also wanted to show our catalog. So if you are, again, if you have a specific course in mind or you want to take a look at what majors that we offer and what classes can be used for those majors, this is a great place to go. Our catalog is fully online, so you can find a lot through here. I would recommend starting with our courses and programs here. This is where you're going to see like all of our majors. So for example, if I go in here, you can see the degrees that we offer in those areas, and as well as certificates. If you're looking for a specific area, I would recommend starting here. Also wanted to highlight our CalGETSI pathway. Oops, CalGETSI pathway. This is the general education pathway for UCs and CSUs. So if you're interested in transferring to a UC or CSU, these are the kinds of courses you'd have to take. Again, a great place to start if you're not sure what kind of classes you want to take. Definitely recommend starting with this. It includes our English, critical thinking, public speaking, math courses. This is a very popular list if you're curious about what math classes we offer. This is a great way to see the different options here. Arts and humanities, social behavioral science. Oh, hold on, gotta get through humanities. Social behavioral science. You'll see there's a lot of course options in here across all of our different majors. Physical and biological sciences, and ethnic studies. So these are all of the areas that are required if you're planning to transfer to a UC or CSU. And I mentioned we'll cover AP exams, so this is also a great link. If you've taken AP tests through your high school, this can help you figure out how those will place. So primarily this list is used to show what CalGETSI area, that's this general education pattern, where those test scores can be placed on your CalGETSI pattern. But you'll also notice that a couple of them list prerequisites. So for example, if we go down to mathematics, if you've taken the Calc AB test, if you have a score of a 3, that can be used to clear for these classes. So super useful if you're trying to figure out where you place with your stuff. Definitely recommend going through this page. Let's see. Yeah, so all these are on there. Sorry, those are also listed at the bottom here as our footnotes. So just a lot more information if you're curious how your AP scores will apply to DVC or if you can use them to clear a prerequisite, this is the place to go for that. I mentioned our searchable course schedule, but here's a direct link if you want to get through there. And then last but not least, our how-to guides for student success. So this is, again, guides made by our Welcome and Connect Services office that cover anything you could possibly want to do at DVC. We have our application, how to log into Insight, how to complete the online placement process for our math and English, all sorts of stuff. Again, special admissions form is also listed here. Registration guides, we have how to access Insight, all sorts of stuff, as well as our Welcome and Connect Services office being available in our enrollment lab at both our Pleasant Hill and San Ramon campus. If you have more specific questions that you need assistance with, they're there during business hours to assist any student through our registration process. All right, that was a lot of information, a lot of me talking, but I hope it covered a lot of your questions. Here is our contact information. So mine here on the left, again, I'm our manager of early college credit. You can email me at sapeterson@dvc.edu or earlycollegecredit@dvc.edu. Either will work. I also have our Welcome and Connect services. Again, if you are working through the registration process, application questions, definitely a great place to start. And if you're running into an error or you need to clear a prerequisite, any of those more technical things, that would be going to our admissions and records office here. All right. I think I had enough talking for a little bit. Sarah, how's the Q&A looking?
So there were a few raised hands, but no one has yet posted a question in the Q&A.
Ooh.
So if you do have a question that you would like to have answered, it looks like there's a few people who are raising their hands now. Please post those questions in the Q&A box at the bottom, and Sarah and I can go through answering those questions. So we'll give you all a minute to put your questions in that space so that we can make sure that your questions are answered.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm hoping that it's open. Oh, here we
Right?
go.
Yeah.
I think it just opened.
Okay.
All right, so now we can take those questions. Sorry about that. There we go. Thank you for your raised
Okay.
hands
Thank
trying to
you.
tell us that. All right. So I'll just answer these live as they come in if I feel like I can. Watercoloring class. Yes, we do offer our watercolor class. Will it be applied for art credit is going to be a question for your high school counselor. So I would look through our art classes on our searchable schedule, find the class that feels like it's most appropriate to what you're looking for, and then bring that to your high school counselor to see if it can be used for art credit. Our class is weighted. Again, that is going to be a high school decision. So check in with your high school counselor about that. Different districts have different policies on how classes are applied to high school transcripts. So that's going to be definitely a question for your high school counselor. Are there any classes that are not available for high school students? It's a good question. Not really. The only ones that I can think of are PE courses, like I mentioned. They do have some special restrictions. So you have to register on the first day of class instead of during the normal registration time. Aside from that, the only ones I can think of are classes that have a high prerequisite. So, for example, some of our highest level math courses you might not be able to get through with just a high school course. So, any of those classes that require prerequisites, you could take the prerequisite classes at DVC and work your way up. But that's really the only ones I can think of that are not available. For what grade do you need to pass prerequisites? That's a great question. If you're using a high school course to clear a prerequisite, for example, trying to take like a higher level Spanish course, a higher level sign language course, something like that, you need a C or higher in the second semester. The first semester I think can be lower, but generally C is the what we consider passing at DVC for high school as well. So we won't accept Ds. Let's see. I'm sure there's way too many questions here for me to just keep doing this, but I'm going to keep
There's
going.
32. Um,
Do you
so
want to take a
we'll
couple?
do, I'll try to take some of these.
Go for it.
Um, do high school students have to wait until others get registered? Um, High school students have to wait until their registration date. So for spring, it's January 8th. That doesn't mean that there are certainly students who are registering after that date, but the January 8th, there are a couple questions around that. So one person asked, what is the date that students can start registering? It is for spring, it's January 8th at 7 a.m. typically. Students
Mhm.
can find that information on their Insight portal under registration dates and steps. Um, but as long as they have their special admissions form processed, you all should be able to register on that date, despite what other students have done prior to that point. Um, is it guaranteed college credit? So if students yes, I mean, students are earning college credit. Of course, in terms of concurrent high school students are held to the same standard as a typical college student. Um, so students can take some classes pass, no pass. That's an option. Or they can earn the credit that has been assigned to that class. Of course, with a passing grade. Um,
I'm
do,
going up from the bottom, so.
okay. Do parents need to have an account to sign up? So when you get the email alerting you that your student has submitted the special admissions form, it will prompt you to create an account, and then you can automatically from there go in and sign the special admissions form. You don't need to do it prior to that point. And the creation of the account is quite simple. There's not too many steps or too many questions to answer in that account setup. Um, how or where do I find the prerequisite course? So for a particular course. So Sarah showed students how to search for classes on our class schedule. There are notes on the class schedule that will indicate the type of class that it is. Is it online? Is it hybrid? In those notes, it will also indicate if there is a prerequisite. So the catalog or the schedule is a really great resource to find all of that information in one place. If I do concurrent enrollment, do I still go to my high school campus until I have to leave my DVC class? That would be up to your parent or your school to determine how that would work. So I will defer to parents and high school counselors on that particular topic. How do I make a DVC account where I can check the classes that are offered? So you do not need to make an account to see what classes are offered at DVC. Those are all available on our website. Again, the slide deck is going to be shown, but if you go to DVC's website, you can either search in the search bar for course schedule, or under the academics tab, there is a option to choose the catalog and the schedule, and you can search from there. It is available to the public to search. What you do need an account for is to do everything else. So at that point, in order to create an account, you need to apply to the college to get access to Insight, all of those tiles that Sarah referred to in her presentation. Are there several rounds of registration dates? I was told high school students get the last picks. Yes, there are. So there are different registration dates depending on the type of student you are, how many units you've completed. So if you're a matriculated college student with a certain number of units completed, you're going to have a date that is earlier than those who are new. The high school registration date is towards the end of the registration period, which is one of the reasons Sarah mentioned having a backup plan. So not only having, you are permitted to register for any section of the class that you've been cleared for, but you also want to make sure that you have a backup plan. So if you might want to take a psychology class and a business class and a sign language class, you can list those all on the special admissions form so that you have some options come registration time. Will this meeting be recorded and sent out? Yes, it is. It is currently being recorded. I will be uploading it to our YouTube page tomorrow, and I will send out all of this information, including the slide deck, to you all tomorrow. How are we doing? We got a few more minutes left.
Man,
we are not
still one from the bottom, so
yeah, okay. We are going. We will have summer enrollment presentations in April. But what I can tell you, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, much of this information is that the process is the same. So the special admissions form,
yes, exactly.
applying, clearing prerequisites. In fact, the course schedule is also available for view for summer already. So you can apply for summer already. So even if you're not intending to enroll for spring, many of these steps for summer can be started now.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say the only reason I make the distinction is because the forms are not available yet for summer. So
yes,
if you're interested in summer, you're a little early, but
yes,
most of it is going to be the same.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Do all classes have prerequisites? No, they do not. Are there cooking classes? Yes, there are. We have a fantastic culinary program. Let's see. Is some considered the same for one high school? Sarah, can you take this one? Is summer session considered the same as one high school semester or one full semester?
For high school semester?
Is our summer sessions?
So all of our semesters are typically a DVC semester is equivalent to a year of high school credit. Again, the credit part is definitely, I would definitely check in with your high school counselor about how it's going to be actually applied. But typically, for example, our like our ASL 1 class is equivalent to a year of high school ASL, whether you take it in the fall, spring, or summer.
Some of these we've answered and other questions. Are all classes I take here automatically college courses? Yes, they are. Yes, you can see the spring semester course listing on our website without having to go into Insight. How many times? So how many times do you go to class during the week? That depends on the course. So
Mhm.
much like some of the other information that we refer to that you can find on the class schedule, it will list. If it's fully online, you probably will see that there is no course time that you are expected to log in to Zoom or some other modality. Um, it would essentially be self-paced in many cases. The the course schedule will indicate the days that the course is offered and the times. So in most cases, so there's a variety. You might have classes on Mondays and Wednesdays. You might have class just on Wednesday. You might have class just on a Tuesday night, Tuesdays or Thursdays. So there's a lot of choices around when and how classes are offered. Um, So to clarify, yes, you can apply now, do all of the special admissions forms
Mhm.
now, and that will set you up to be able to register for those classes on January 8th. One student asked if they've already registered, they've already applied to DVC and they have their ID, but they want to confirm whether they've done things correctly. If you would like to this person, if you want to reach out to me directly, I will give you my email address. I'm going to give you 1 second to get a pen. Um, and I can help you directly. So my email address is sproctor, Proctor, at dvc.edu. You can also reach out to welcome at dvc.edu. That is our Welcome and Connect Services office. Um, There was a slide about students being able to take up to 11 units. Can you elaborate?
Sure. Sorry, I'm just typing. So yeah, so students are able to take up to 11 units per semester. So that would be 11 units in the fall, 11 units in the spring, 11 units over the summer. I don't typically recommend taking 11 units because that is quite substantial. For example, that would be about 3 to 4 college classes, depending on the number of units for each course. Again, a typical DVC course is 3 to 5 units. So I would recommend starting with 1 or 2 courses, especially in that summer term because it's a shorter term. I usually recommend starting with 1, maybe 3 units, but you can take up to 11 if you're interested.
So there are a handful of questions around, the types of classes that can count towards something else.
Hmm.
We want you to talk to your high school counselor about that. All of those are case specific. So we'll defer to your high school counselor. We did have a question about math, that you have a student that wants to take trigonometry. Do all math classes or some math classes have prerequisites? Yes, they do. That information would be listed under the course schedule that we've been talking about to indicate what prerequisite is required for what math class. Um, can a student take a class to improve a grade? And if so, do colleges recognize the higher grade?
Sorry, one more time.
Can a student take a class to improve a grade? And if so, do colleges recognize the higher grade?
Um, so I would check if you're trying to improve a high school grade, I would check in with your high school counselor because that again is more of a transcripting question and what they will accept. And yeah, even for the will colleges accept it? If you take a class at DVC and you do not pass it, so for us, that's either getting a D, an F, or an NP. If you don't pass a DVC class, you are able to retake it at DVC for a higher grade. And then both classes will be listed on your DVC transcript, but only the higher grade will be calculated into your GPA. So that's something else to note that even though you have a high school transcript and a college transcript, Your college transcript will be permanent. So courses you take through concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment will be on your permanent college transcript. You will need to submit them when you're doing college applications. So the grades that you get in those classes are important. And like I mentioned, if you fail or you have to withdraw, you can retake the course, but both will be listed as on your transcript.
Is there a way for, excuse me, is there a way to find out if my high school counselor signed the special admissions form?
Yes. Sorry.
You're typing an answer. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So there is a way. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it to you, but if you have a question, there are ways to view the forms that you've already submitted through that system. So basically, if you click back into the links before you hit complete form, on the top of the page, there's some options like my forms, draft forms, things like that. You can go through there and actually see the status of your form. Also, you will get an email through your Insight email at every step of the process. So that's typically where I recommend students check is checking your Insight email. You'll see when your parent and guardian signs it, you'll see when your counselor signs it, and then you should also see when it's processed. So that's the best way to check it. There is also a way to check it in the form system if you need to. Also, if you have accidentally put the wrong information on for your parent or your high school counselor, you can update that after you submit the form, or you can just submit a new form with the correct information.
So what would the duration of any course typically be during the summer? That does depend a little bit, but and that information again is on the course schedule. What you probably expect is that because it's the summer, those courses are condensed into a shorter time frame. So the typical classes might be longer throughout the day, where in a typical semester, it might be an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours a couple times a week. Over the summer, courses could be longer in duration each day. They might meet Monday through Thursday or 2 days for a longer duration. So it really depends on the course. And that's, so you would want to look through the course schedule to see what that might look like and mean for you. You don't see notes for math 194 linear algebra. Does that mean that it is hybrid or on campus? So if there is no, if you, if there's no notes on there, maybe the course schedule is still being populated with that information. To understand whether or not the class is offered online, in addition to the notes, if you look to the left, there will be a section that will either say online, or it will have a room number and location. So it might say M124, which would be the math building room 124. And if it has a room number, it means that it's in person. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
it likely means that it is online.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to highlight that when I was
Yeah.
looking at the schedule.
It's okay. What if I take a course on one campus, but you want to take a course at another campus? So if by the two campuses you mean San Ramon and DVC, that's one college. So you won't need to fill out additional special admissions forms. If you want to take a class at a separate college, like Los Medanos or Contra Costa College, there are special admissions forms through those schools that would need to be completed. Okay. I'm hoping I'm not missing any here. Can I sign up for 2 semesters of sign language at once?
No, typically because you would be the spring registration. So, for example, if you're taking one in spring and then the next in summer, they have different registration days. So, you would register for the first one in January and then the second one in May. If you're looking at fall, that's going to be in June. So, there's staggered registration times and days for each semester. So, you wouldn't be able to do it all at once. But if you've applied and registered for one semester, it makes that second semester a lot easier because if you're taking it immediately after, you don't have to do a new application or that step at all. So it does make it easier, but you still have to wait for your registration date for that second semester.
So there is a question, is Calc 1 easier than AP Calc AB? That is relative. So we're not able to answer that question because it really depends on the student. If you do have questions about the complexity of the class and you have concerns, please talk with your high school counselor. Is there classes higher than AP level for language?
Um, Technically, I think you can check that AP course list that's in our catalog to see what level the APs are used for. But for example, if you've taken like Spanish 4 at your high school, I don't know if DVC has a Spanish 5. If we do, it's probably not offered very often, and it might not be offered at a time that works for a high school student. We typically, in the summer especially, only offer the first level or two of a class of our languages. So just keep that in mind. We may have higher levels, but it might be offered in the morning.
Should I take a class to help me earn a good grade for the same class in high school? Please talk to your counselor in high school about that. They can advise you on what are options for you. How does pass no pass affect your GPA? It does not because you're not receiving a letter grade. It's um, it's not going to impact your GPA. So if you get an A, it won't impact your GPA, but if you don't, it will also
Mhm.
not have a negative impact on your GPA. Can you see the Q&A on YouTube? Well, this is recorded, so all of our questions that we're answering now will be available on YouTube. I don't know if we can post the questions. I think we can look at that and how we might be able to share that if that's what is of interest to you.
I had a couple that I started answering and then I decided I wanted to answer live. So let me
Okay,
go
go
back to
ahead.
those. How do you know which specific course applies to your future major? For if you're looking to take the major at DVC, I would check our catalog. Even if you're thinking of applying to a different college like a UC or CSU, I would probably start with our DVC catalog to find that major. So for example, if you're interested in a psychology major, look at our psychology degree and you can see the types of courses that are required for that. The next one I had, which I kind of answered already, but just to cover it again, if you fail a course, will that show up on your transcript for colleges to see? Yes. So your DVC transcript is a college transcript. When you're completing college applications, you will need to submit all college transcripts that you've taken. So even if you take one class at DVC and you fail, you will still need to submit that on your college application. So again, it's super important to, again, that's why I recommend starting with a lower unit count if you're just getting started, just to see the rigor and how well it works with your schedule, because these are permanent records.
Um, where can I see the class schedule and teacher for a summer class? You can find that on our website under the academics tab that is listed at the top of the DVC website. You click on that academics tab, it will drop you down. You can see catalog and schedule. Once you click from there, you can find our schedule. Once you search for classes, you will be able to see the instructor of the classes listed there, the times, the modality, all of the information. And again, we are going to be sending out these slides and the links that are going to take you directly to these places on our website tomorrow.
I think these next two are pretty important
Okay,
and
you've
a little
taken
bit difficult to
them.
answer, but I do want to cover them. I know we're over time, but I want to at least get these next two. So my daughter took a summer class last summer before starting freshman year. Does she need to submit a new application for concurrent enrollment? So our application policy, and Sarah, you may know more specifics than I do on this. Typically, if you're taking a class the next semester, you don't need to reapply. So if you took a summer class and then you want to take a fall class, you don't need to reapply. Spring, I don't know if you know, Sarah, off the top of your head, if they took a summer class and then want to take a
They
spring class.
will need, yes, if they took a summer
Yes.
class and want to take a spring class, they will need to reapply.
And same for the next summer. It should give you the same DVC login information. So your account should remain the same. It's just that in order to get that registration date and be able to register, we need to make sure that you're still an active student. So if you're not sure, I would recommend doing a new application just so that you have it on your account. But you can also check in with admissions and records to see if you need to. Anything else you want to add on that, Sarah?
Just to clarify, um, it The special admissions form is specific to the term.
Hmm.
So if you listed courses on a special admissions form in the summer, that's not going to be carried over into the next term. So you do need to complete that form again, for sure.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so this next one for residency requirements, does that mean only being a US resident or does it also count undocumented people? So our residency requirements we accept a wide range of legal statuses. There's only a couple that have to provide additional documentations if they're currently in high school. But most students that are attending a California high school are able to clear their residency with just their high school transcript. Regardless of legal status, regardless of other situations, typically a high school student can clear with that. There are a couple of visas that are not able to clear that way. For example, H4 is one that may need to provide proof of their visas, but they would still be able to clear their residency in most cases to get that free tuition. So if you have a specific situation that you're interested in learning more about, I definitely recommend checking in with admissions and records. We have a residency evaluator who's available to answer questions as well. Residency can be really stressful, but again, most high school students can clear it either with their high school transcript or with a couple of additional documents.
so there are some questions that we have answered about classes being weighted or how can you confirm if your special missions form has been accepted. Just to reiterate on that one, once the form is processed, the student gets an email sent to their Insight email letting them know that it has been processed and they can register on their registration date. So that's the surefire way to figure out that it's been processed. Typically, it's once it is signed by the high school counselor, it typically is 3 to 5 business days for the admissions office here to process that form and send out that email to the student. So that's the general turnaround time once the counselor has signed that form. Just to give you a point of reference time-wise. Um, so there's a question about taking Spanish 4. You will need to talk to your high school counselor about that question. Higher level classes, do you have to pass a test or just give your transcript? I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but if you're
Um,
trying to,
I think I can answer that one.
okay.
So if you have taken the previous class at your high school, we will take your high school transcript for that. So for example, if you're trying to take Spanish 3 and or Spanish is a weird one. Let's stick with sign language. Some of our languages don't line up perfectly. For sign language, if you're trying to take sign language 3 and you've taken sign language 2 at your high school, we just need to see your high school transcript with that final grade. We do have to see both semester grades, so we would have to wait until that is posted to clear. If you are a native speaker or you're trying to take a language class that is not something that you've taken in high school, there are options for challenging prerequisites. If you're able to write an essay, there's some certain prompts for that. But again, if you're interested in that, if you're interested in skipping ahead, or if you're a native speaker of that language and you want to take a higher level version of that course, check in with our admissions and records office for that process.
Can someone currently taking AP Calc B, which is equivalent to Math 192, apply for Math 193 for the spring?
No. So you have to have the AP test score in order to register. You might be able to take it over the summer. Again, check in with our admissions office for that process. But for the spring, we can't take in progress coursework. That's true for high school courses and AP courses.
Um, okay. How long are college credits good for?
Forever.
Yep.
Yep.
So you're in luck.
Mhm.
um, yes. Are summer classes more condensed than spring and fall? Yes, they are. Which is why they typically are going to be longer classes throughout the day or meet every day, Monday through Thursday, depending on the course. How many levels of sign language classes are there?
Check the catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, we don't typically
Please
offer
do.
every level every semester.
Yes.
Similar with the Spanish 4 question of will Spanish 3 work, I would say check in with our admissions office or just submit the prerequisite form.
Mhm. Just a note on that prerequisite form, it is important that you provide that documentation. So an unofficial transcript indicating what you took, when you took it, and the grade you took it. Otherwise, they don't have a way to evaluate whether you've met the prerequisite or not.
Yeah, make sure your name's on that. I've seen a lot of prerequisite forms that have the name cut off because of a screenshot. Gotta have all the information on that same page.
How would clearing prerequisites work for freshmen if they haven't been in high school for 2 semesters?
So if you're trying to take a class that requires a prerequisite that can be cleared with a high school class, you would have to wait until that second semester. Typically, that's just going to be languages and some math classes. So not all of our classes require prerequisites. So there may be some options for you to take in the meantime.
And then I think we're at our final question, and that
Right.
is there a chart to convert math class that convert classes, specifically math?
No, there is not. So I would say again, check in with your high school counselor to see what options there are. Um, we typically offer, we offer geometry, trigonometry, pre-calculus, calc 1. So we offer a pretty standard math sequence. But in terms of how it will convert to a high school or how it will convert to AP, that's not something we can necessarily advise you on, especially if you're trying to take it for acceleration. Like if you want to accelerate through your math sequence, definitely check in with your high school counselor.
So with that, we appreciate all of your questions. We hope that we were able to answer all of them. The slides that will be sent out to you will include contact information, so you can reach out to either Sarah's team or my team at any point. Like I said, I will be sending out the links to this recorded presentation tomorrow, along with the slides that Sarah shared during her presentation. And we look forward to seeing all you students in the spring.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for attending and for taking so much time out of your evening. So we hope to see
Take
you.
care. Bye.
Bye.